Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Those Coffee People podcast. I'm your host, Louisa, joined here from Medellin, Colombia, and today we're diving into a topic that every food and beverage business owner has wrestled with at some point: inventory management. Now, inventory can sound like a boring back end of running a catering business, but in reality, it's really like the backbone of doing business and making sure you avoid waste, making sure your customers always have an amazing experience, but also to keep costs under control. So to unpack this topic, I'm joined by Nikki, the founder of Anecho Coffee. Anecho is a mobile espresso. Sorry, I'm going to do it again. Okay. To unpack this topic, I'm joined by Nikki, founder of Anecho Coffee. Anecho is a mobile espresso bar and coffee catering service serving the tri-state area. Nikki has over a decade of experience in the restaurant industry, and with Anecho Coffee, she is creating a specialty experience at multiple events. Nikki, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start a little bit with the basics. Who are you? How did you start in the industry? How did Anecho start? Like, how did everything take place?
Sure. So I'm Nikki. I'm 35 years old. I've been running Anecho since 2018. I started it as a pop-up while I had a full-time job managing a restaurant. Had a lot of strong interest in opening a coffee shop, and my husband suggested that we start a mobile coffee company um, to kind of be a jumping point to opening a coffee shop. Prior to
Mhm.
that, I went to culinary school for baking and pastries, managed a and served at a restaurant for like 12 plus years. So I do have a lot of experience in food and hospitality. I definitely love the hospitality aspect as well as just serving a really good cup of coffee. So, from pop-ups in 2022, we switched to catering only, and that kind of afforded us the opportunity to grow the team to we did 100 events in 2022, and then this year, I think we've already done almost 400.
Wow.
So we're at, like, yeah, 3 something. Catering has definitely helped us to grow, without needing to have a brick and mortar,
Mhm.
and, I'm a big proponent of catering if you can swing it as opposed to a brick and mortar, um, as far as, like, the overhead costs and all of that.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Thank you for this introduction. So you've briefly already like given like a quick introduction about the net show, but perhaps you can paint a picture of what you do and what like a
Mhm.
typical setup looks like at like I don't know, the events that you host, or not host, but you're cater.
Yeah, so, to each event, we bring a cart. We have a local woodworker that makes it. It breaks down, into a few pieces so that we can load it into a minivan. We also bring some toolboxes that carry like the espresso grinder, lots of extension cords, portafilters, all the typical coffee equipment that you're going to be using in a specialty coffee shop. We're just bringing it with us. We bring a pump that we use from Cafe Works. They have a great pump system that's nice and mobile, as well as a pitcher rinser, fresh water, gray water tanks, syrups, milks, all of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
We're packing into minivans and we kind of just pack each van per the event, whether that's, 20 guests or we're going to be doing 1,000 guest event next week.
Oh wow, 1,000 guests. Wow, that sounds like
Yeah.
a lot of
So that's
people.
more than one cart, but yeah.
So how many of those little like fans or carts do you have to serve coffee on?
Sure. So we have 7 carts and then we have 8 espresso machines. Personally, we use the GS3 from La Marzocco. We haven't had issues with it. Everyone has, all the catering people have their like machine that they stand or whatever, but we really love the GS3. So we have 7 of those setups and then all of our different toolboxes for each cart.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. That sounds like a good setup to me. So when you think about your inventory, like what does that exactly include for you as you're very mobile, let's say, like going from one place to another?
Sure. So we try to keep everything pretty simple. Like typically, we're only offering whole milk and oat milk at our events. We definitely do other milks upon request, but just to keep everything simple, since there are a lot of moving parts, we're obviously not serving at the same event every day. We like to keep things pretty simple. So we have a standard menu that we offer, cappuccinos, lattes, hot chocolate teas, etc. And then clients could add on chai or matcha. And beyond that, we're just keeping it simple with the milks, like I said, whole and oat. We make our own syrup, so we try and make those fresh every week. So we might prep on like Friday or Monday for the week ahead, trying to not waste and keep everything aligned.
So tell me more about this syrups of yours.
Yeah,
I'm
so we
intrigued.
have about 14 syrups that clients can choose from for their guests. Typically, they get about two, and then we include house-made hot chocolate, which is our mocha sauce. So we're bringing usually four. We'll bring a simple syrup, the two choice syrups, and then mocha for hot chocolate.
Hmm.
And it kind of just varies on the guest count. We will bring a full bottle, obviously, if it's just 20 people, but they're not going through that. So we might have that roll in, over into the next event, keeping it refrigerated and all of that. So there are definitely the core that will get chosen a lot. So we definitely always try to have those on hand and ready to go.
Okay. Which items you think, well, based on all the items that you've already named, are the most trickiest to manage? So, for example, like either
Mhm.
because they're, I don't know, like because they demand, because the demand varies, let's say, like based on the events, or
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe some other reason.
Sure. I would say whole milk and coffee. The whole milk because you don't want to overbring where you have to, we'll bring cooler bags and pack it with ice packs and keep it cold, make sure have the thermometers in there. But you don't want to overbring so that you're taking it out of refrigeration. And so we have, I would say, a good handle on how many like whole milks will go through based on the guest count, but it is really hard to tell because it really does depend on the clientele. So like the younger crowd might be more into oat milk and ice drinks, and then the older crowd might be getting more Americanos or cappuccinos. So we try and keep a good account of what we think we should bring, and then occasionally if it's a longer event we might have to run out and get milk. And then as far as coffee, we're typically bringing at least 10 pounds to an event. If it's a smaller event, like 20 people, the 5 pounds is going to be more than enough. But I would say it's tricky as far as ordering it because you can have a 100-person event for a couple hours where they are getting 200 plus drinks, but you can also have a 300-person event for a couple hours where they might only get 100 drinks. So we definitely obviously try and bring enough for the event, but ordering can be a little tricky. I think that it's important to have enough on hand. When I first started, um, there were a few times we would get asked for last minute events, and this happens now as well. But I was like, I don't want to have to say no to an event because I don't have enough coffee because I was unsure if we were going to get a last minute event. So I think keeping a few extra bags on hand, and you never know, maybe it falls out of the van and it spills or somebody spills it on site.
Hmm.
So I think it's always a safeguard to better to have it than to not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. Like it's better to have a little bit more than a little bit less, let's say.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
said something interesting earlier about like younger people, let's say, about like what you can expect from them versus older people. Can you
Sure.
elaborate a little bit on that? Like based on your experience, what you find that is most
Yeah.
common?
So based on our experience, let's say we're at a conference and it's corporate and there's a lot of like men in their 40s and 50s. They are often gearing towards Americanos, cappuccinos, maybe even espressos. Definitely less ice drinks. If we're in an office and it's a younger crowd, millennials, 40 and below, a lot more ice drinks. There we will go through a lot more syrups at that time because people like to add that. More oat milk because people are trying not to drink whole milk, although I do think whole milk is on the come up.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I think some people now are like, "Oh, I don't actually like the way oat milk makes me feel," so then they're back to the whole milk. Um, so you never know, but definitely, like, with the younger crowd, the ice drinks will be served more often throughout the year. A lot of times they're adding on matcha to that event, and matcha can be very popular when it's added.
So so what makes inventory management especially challenging for like a mobile catering business versus like a
Sure.
traditional cafe?
So I think while cafes, you can obviously see the trends with catering and we're still growing. So like this September, we'll have done over 80 events. And last year, I think we did like 40 or 50. So it's it's hard to even look back at last year's reports and say, "Oh, this is what the numbers that we did, and then so we should order accordingly." But I think keeping kind of an open mind about what we'll need and just having a little bit more on hand because we do get last minute events. It might be a day or two before, or like for instance, I got an email this morning for Tuesday. So if I ordered coffee today, it likely would not be here by Tuesday. So it's important to just have some on hand.
So do you then have your supplier in the same state as you are located in, or how do
So our coffee supplier is actually in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which we talked about.
you?
Passenger Coffee Roasters. So I've been using them since we started in 2018. They're amazing. And I just have a good relationship with them. There have been times where either I've under ordered or just like shipping, and I've had to get coffee overnighted. And I think just keeping a good relationship with your suppliers is really important because they're more willing to help you out if you're kind. And obviously, if you're not calling them every week, like, oh, I made a mistake. But, obviously things happen and you can't plan for everything or just, you might think you placed an order and you didn't. I've done that before. So I think I think keeping a good rapport with your suppliers is really important.
Yeah, no, I bet like having a good supplier like relationship, I think is like the key to running a business as well, because
Yeah.
trustworthiness as well.
And you can't have I can't do the events without the product,
Huh?
and so
You need them, they need you.
yeah,
It's like a vicious cycle.
exactly.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into like how you manage stocks, because you already like said some things that were really interesting earlier, and I just want to dive into a little bit like more about how you manage it. Do you, for example, use any particular tools to track inventory, or how do you keep track? How do you know when to order, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should use, like, some tracking software, but because we don't have that many items, it's kind of just like a visual look at our shelves, like, "Okay." And I know so right now is our busy season, September to December, so I know at this point I should be ordering coffee almost weekly, if not like a week plus a couple days.
Uh-huh.
Whereas like when it's a little slower, I might order every 2 weeks. We also want to order a little bit ahead of time so that we can let the coffee rest.
Yes.
Hopefully, like not using it one day past roast or one day after it was roasted. So I try and keep all those factors in mind. And then as far as like, so oat milk, we'll just get a whole, what's it called? Sorry, oat milk, we'll get a whole flat of it, and so we'll have that, and then when it gets low, we'll order another, which is like 85 boxes or something like that. So we'll always have that on hand because that's easy to store. The whole milk, I'm usually ordering a couple times a week. We do have refrigerators, but I don't wanna overorder and then it could potentially go bad, but also it takes up space, so I might order that definitely every week, if not twice a week.
Okay. Okay, great. And then let's say you're forecasting for what you need for an event. Like let's say this event
Mhm.
is planned ahead and you're gonna do this. Like it's in 2 months. Let's say it's in 2 months.
Sure.
How do you then like forecast it? Let's say like is it then based on how many people are coming? How many
Mhm.
like I don't know. How do you do that?
Sure. There's a few factors. So, first would be guest count, and then second would be time frame. So, 150 people for 2 hours is going to be different than 150 people for 8 hours. And granted, we could probably only serve 150 people in 2 hours. So, you're not necessarily going to be serving over that. But obviously, if you're there all day, you can definitely serve over that. So, we definitely try and overpack because it does not feel good to be running out of stuff and you're like, "Where should I go?" And I think we've definitely learned that. So, like, eat for a basic event, even if it's 50 people, I always tell my team, pack like it's a 2-hour event with 150 people, and that's just, extra cups, making sure we have enough coffee. If we have the stock here, it doesn't make sense to not bring it with you and then be stressed about running out.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had an interesting situation last week or the week before where we were at a conference, a 2-day conference. The guest count was 200 people. It ended up last minute, I think, or the guest count was 250. Last minute, another 200 people had signed up. Yeah, so thankfully, we brought all of our cups, coffee, towels, etc. for both days. And so they went through, like, most of that on the first day. Now they did have to go get more milk because 200 more people is a lot. You're going through a lot more milk. They had to get more water. Oh, that's another thing, water, because we have to bring in all the water that we need. So definitely things happen that you can't account for, and we didn't know there would be basically double the amount of guests. So we try and do our best.
So what is your plan B? Let's say, okay, what happened the other day? Like you account for
Mhm.
250 people and then 200 more show up. Like that's almost double. What do
Yes.
you do in this situation? Like, do you call someone or do you have plan B? Like, how do you manage this?
Yeah, so it depends. There's a few different things. We have created this year emergency bags that are in the van. So that's like at least 100 extra cups. We've got like extra screws in case a wheel falls off of the cart. We've got extra portafilters in case somehow that gets left behind, an extra tam, an extra pitcher. What else is in there? Right now, during busy season, we might keep like an extra bag of coffee in the car that we'll swap out every week. So, definitely trying to plan ahead to divert any issues that might happen because you really never know. As far as this instance where double the guest count came, I mean, thankfully, we had brought enough like the cups for both of the days. It is, I mean, if you're in the middle of New York City, it is hard to find coffee cups. Our preference is like 8-ounce hot and 12-ounce cold, so we try not to have to go and get them. You know, that day I was in contact with my team. They went to maybe, let's say, like a Whole Foods, got more water, got more milk. I often say, well, like we can figure out an Uber Eats situation if you need us to get something delivered. Obviously, the cups are like definitely the hardest to find, kind of last minute, but
I bet, because like I assume that you have your cups like with your logo on it and whatever.
so we don't because we do a lot of branded events. So we have like stamps and stickers with our logo, but because we are doing a lot of branded events, most of the cups are just blank and then we'll brand it with what the client asks for.
Okay.
And so to events where it's not branded, we sometimes just bring unbranded cups just to make it easier so it's not like swapping them out every time. But yeah.
But I think that's good because that also avoids waste or like those kinds of things where you're like, oh,
Yeah,
well, I bought this and I invested in this and then like I'm not doing anything with it anymore.
exactly.
That's really good. Yeah, so you already said basically that you order weekly at your roastery. Like on average, maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less, but like on average weekly. How do you know exactly when to reorder? I mean, you just said like, okay, I just visualize it, but like, how do you know?
So, like, you know, we have big shelves, and I'm like, okay, that looks like it's running low, or I might know, okay, we have in the next 3 days, we might have 10 events. All of this coffee that's here that I can see is going to be out the door. And so, kind of just anticipating that a little bit more than like, oh, you know, well, we have a few bags left, but I'd rather just have it on hand. And again, like, it's nice to let the coffee rest if possible.
Yes.
So, I try to order like a little bit before we actually need it.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great point, and really, really, really necessary as well. Uh, so basically, you've grown Anecho steadily, and like, I mean, you're also growing in events. You already told us a little bit about that. So as your business kind of scaled, how are you, or how would like how has your inventory also changed depending on this?
So definitely learning to order more. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had a really busy week where we had a ton of events and they were larger. And so just being like, all right, I can't order my normal 20 to 30 bags, you know, so I was ordering 60 bags. And then before the end of that week, even though there were still bags remaining, I ordered another 20 just so we could have it. And, you know, in that case, I told my team, like, just leave what got delivered in the boxes so we're not mixing all the risks. That's also a thing to like, all right, watch the roast dates, you know, because you want the same roast dates to go out together. You want them to be used first. So just being cognizant of that is really important along with having it there. So just being able to anticipate. And there was a time, you know, I was ordering 5 or 10 bags a week or 5 or 10 bags every 2 weeks, but just as the business grows, knowing, okay, 1 5-pound bag, you're going to get around 100 espresso shots, right? So if we're dosing at 20 grams, you got to give some, like somebody spilled it or they had to change the grind, so they had to purge a lot. So we kind of account each bag is around 100 servings.
Okay. Well, that now makes a lot of sense. That you can visualize, okay, like this bag would be more than
Hmm.
enough for this. So, do you have like a standard operating procedure or like checklist or anything that your staff
Hmm.
has to go through? And yeah.
Yeah. So for each event, I have an amazing admin. Her name's Lauren. She started last year part time, and in July, she recently came on full time. So she really works on gathering all the information. Each event that we do has a prep sheet. So it's standard, but then we do a lot of custom. So she might write, okay, they're adding matcha, they're adding chai, they got a custom cart or custom cups. So that's all on the prep sheet. And then we have clipboards that are hooked onto the refrigerator via magnets. And so that's just a good way to kind of visualize everything. The prep team is gonna check check off everything, and then the morning before the event leave the office, they're also double checking that the matcha's in there or the custom cups and all of that. So hopefully, we've had some mishaps here and there prior to the checklist. The checklists have been very helpful.
So I'm curious now, like what has been your like disaster moment, let's say, where you were like,
Oh
oh
my
my
gosh.
God.
Well, one time we had like a very busy week and we also had a few carts, I think 3 or 4 carts at one location, and they all were custom. And somehow you have multiple staff, just miscommunication. The cart that we were going to use the next day was out at an event. And so we had the vinyl that we were going to apply to that cart, but it did not get put on the cart and it got left at the office. Yeah. So 2 of 3, unfortunately, had the custom. And you just thankfully it was a client that we've worked with a bunch and really have good rapport with. So we were able to apologize, refund them, all of that stuff. And it's not fun. Like nobody wants to forget anything. Or in some we've forgotten matcha. So it's like, all right, find the nearest coffee shop and get their very small tin of matcha for like $60. Just because I want to deliver everything that the client paid for. And that's happened before and it's not fun, but gotta make it work.
It happens, it happens. But fortunately you learn from it. So like
Yes.
that's a good part. So basically, just gonna check my sheet. Okay, give me 1 second.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna take a drink.
So let's zoom out a little bit, right? And think about someone who's just starting a food truck or a coffee catering service like you, let's say in another state, like that's not in your area, but like, I don't know, like something mobile, right? What
Mhm.
would you say are like top 3 inventory lessons that they should keep in mind from day one?
Sure. I do think starting out is really hard because you don't know what's going to be happening, right? There's no frame of reference for how many people are going to be there, who's going to buy. And especially if you're doing a more like market style event where you're vending per cup, it is hard to gauge. You might do a street festival and they say, oh, there's 3,000 people that come to the festival and there's, 50 booths and it's hard to know. And you plan for 3,000 people buying your coffee. And I think 3,000 people buying your coffee would be a lot, but maybe focus on serving like, oh, we'd love to serve 300 people at this event. So creating like really good product for 300 people and you might only serve 50 people. And I think, that's just starting off and getting used to things. And then if you're doing catering, you might have 100 people and you might say, like, I didn't bring enough, but try to kind of overpack without being wasteful it's a skill to be learned, I think.
Okay, so it's not something you can have like straight away, but it's something that eventually like you fail and then you learn and then you know a little bit
I
more.
think so. Yeah. I think like everything kind of becomes a learning experience, especially when you're starting out. And you're not really gonna know until you're like, "Oh, shoot, I should have brought more of that," or like, "I
Mhm.
brought way too much stuff, like, I didn't need to bring all of that."
Right. So when you started out, for example, did you offer like a wider menu or did you always stuck to like the basics that you have right now and then eventually you grew or
So, when I first started, when I was doing more vending events, I would try and, like, do baked goods and do, all of that. So, I definitely with catering, I pared down a lot, but since I started catering, it was always, like, the simple, americano, latte, espresso. We have a few teas and hot chocolate, and then always the addition of chai or matcha. And we definitely get some interesting requests as well, which I do try to accommodate. Like we had one event where we did strictly strawberry matchas with cold foam, and I think that's fine. I think as you learn and grow, it's easier to take on client requests, but also remembering like it's your kind of your business, and if you that doesn't align with what you want to serve, then you might want to say no. And because I do find when you like the goal is to please the client, right? Like to have their guests be happy and all of that. But there is a point where you're kind of not even going against your values, but just going against the parameters of what you set up your business to be. And it is hard to branch out when you're not so open to it. And you kind of sometimes are like, oh, why did I say yes to that? But it is always a learning experience every time.
So, can you name an example of when that happened to you, or like what
Yeah.
you?
More recently, we did a big event that like taps were involved and all of that stuff. And just planning it was a lot. Like we don't typically use taps and CO2 and nitrogen and all of that, but it's a client that we really enjoy working with. And I was happy to kind of make it work for them, but I wouldn't necessarily do that for every client. We made like house-made seltzers for them and like a nice green tea and cold brew and matcha and all of that. And so it was definitely a different event for us and a learning experience. I thought that you could just make seltzer by putting water in the keg with CO2, but apparently there's a lot more involved. So it was just, I was like, okay, now we have to buy seltzer that we're flavoring and all of that. So it was a lot more admin and figuring out work, and the event went great and the client loved it, but I think there's you just have to weigh the options.
Fair enough. I think that sounds about right. So do you forecast seasonally as well? Like, for example, let's say winter
Sure.
versus summer, or
Hmm.
tell me.
Yeah, so like I said, our busy season is pretty much as soon as September starts until like mid-December. Christmas, like I would say the last 2 weeks, Christmas, New Year's are typically pretty slow. We might have like, I don't know, 3 to 5 events in those 2 weeks, but leading up to it, it's all go, go, go. Last year we did for a busy season, we did 140 events, and then the rest of the year we did 110. So like in 4 months we did 140 events, and in the other 8 months we did 110. And so I mean this year it's definitely similar. By August I think we had done 200 something, and now we're over 300, just being almost done with September.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some seasonality. I would say July and August can be a little bit slower, but it is nice because then the team gets to go away. And I think we kind of thought January, February, March were slower, but last year was nice and steady. It wasn't, crazy. Like we right now have some staff that will do overtime here and there, but most of the time throughout the year, it's, the full timers are just doing their 35 to 40.
Okay. Well, that seems very nice that you already have like a thought about that, and like you have like more of a procedure, let's say, of or like how you say it, like, well, you can already think ahead a little bit more of like what you'll be
Yeah,
needing, and
correct. Yeah, so the team kind of knows like during busy season they're going to be working a little more, and because it's not so crazy the rest of the year, it's nice and steady. They're happy to, they're doing more events, they're getting paid more. They're happy that it's to do it and it's not the whole year. They're not, going crazy for the whole year.
fair enough. So I think, well, I really enjoyed your conversation, and I've learned a lot about like what it's like to work at a mobile catering bar and to serve lots of people and to have all these differences in, oh, let's say summer, winter, or like younger people or older people, or like the whole difference. So before I'd wrap up, I would like to ask you if there's anything else you want to share with the listeners or other people who are starting in the business, if there's any advice you can give them.
Sure. I think that just helping your team grow alongside of you and kind of just knowing you're all growing together is really important. I really value my team because I couldn't do 300 plus events by myself without them. When I first started catering, yeah, I was doing most of the events, but now it's mostly my team. And without your team, you cannot grow your business. And so I think just making sure that they're taken care of and that they're heard is more important than most of the other things that you're going to be looking to do.
I love that, like the human aspect of like doing business.
Yeah,
That's very nice. I have one last question, or two
sure.
actually. The first question is, how did your name start? Like, how did
Sure.
Anecho Coffee get its name?
So, my husband actually found it, and it's a Greek word, and it comes from a Bible verse, Ephesians 4:2, where it talks about bearing with one another in love. And so, anecho is the Greek word that means to bear with and like uplift each other. And we kind of just like that idea of, originally we were trying to open up a coffee shop, which a lot of coffee shop owners wanted to be a third space. They wanted to be a space where people can come and feel connected and hang out and do, even do work, but feel like around people. And so I think that name really embodied that. And even still, like we meet with hundreds of new people each week, and our goal is really to, even in a short interaction of them ordering coffee, is just to make them feel taken care of. And my goal is that for my team, to make them feel taken care of.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I totally support. I think that's really,
Thank
really,
you.
really nice name to have put on your brand.
Thank you.
So before, like the final thing before we wrap up, let's say like if people want to find you, how can they find you
Sure.
if they want to have like someone catering their business? Because I would.
Yeah. So anechocoffee.com. We serve the tri-state area. Most of our events are in New York City. We do a lot of corporate catering and brand activation catering in the city, but we definitely travel. We do Connecticut as well. We've gone to DC once. And we're also on Instagram. Some of our videos are a little less serious, but we definitely like post about our events. We post fun videos. So those are mainly where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure talking to you. Well, for the listeners, thank you so much for listening. And well, I hope you tune in for our next episode. Well, this was the Those Coffee People podcast. I was your host, Louisa. Well, wishing you all a really great day ahead.